So let's cut straight to the chase. Fecto Elfilis is void. Yes, really. Elfilin, and by extension Elfilis, actually has more concrete confirmation of being void than Kirby does. So everyone remembers the iconic elevator scene in Forgotten Land, right? What you might have missed is right before the monologue starts, there's a strange sound, which is binary code. And when translated, it reveals the letters E-F-I-L-L-I-N, which is a slightly jumbled version of Elfilin's name. When read backwards, this reads Nil Life. Nil is the name of Void Termina in the Japanese version of Kirby Star Allies, meaning that Elfilin's name is an anagram of Nil Life. So this is direct confirmation that Elfilin, and by extension Fecto Elfilis, is a void being, a nil life form, which just opens up so many new possibilities. First, it means people theorizing that Kirby-looking characters like Meta Knight or Void have gone down the drain because Void can come in all shapes and sizes. Theories about weapons Void uses being weapons of the four heroes have also been flipped on their heads, because he uses a spear that looks and behaves similar to Elfilis' spear, meaning it's more likely weapons that belong to Void's kin. Speaking of, Void has been said to exist in all dimensions and all forms, but to me, Elfilis doesn't seem like an incarnation of Void, though if it is, it's definitely a dream matter incarnation. But since they call it nil life, that phrase would imply that there are more than one, which was further emphasized by Fecto Forgo being called invasive species. In hindsight, it was pretty clear considering the substance Elfilis becomes looks remarkably similar to Void and is in a ball shape. But that being said, not every being that looks like this is necessarily nil life. A video by SMB Mario explains why so many villains become like this in great detail. But to simplify, the closer one gets to being nothing but a soul, the closer to Void they become, because Void is the purest, basic form of all matter, and exists in every soul. Elfilis' most Void-looking form isn't even a soul form, though, because Elfilis is naturally already Void. It also might give us some insight into the makeup of Kirby. Elfilis is an amorphous blob of liquidy material, but when focused into its true form, it has the more of a body like an animal with fur. But when weakened, it melts back into this reduced substance. I'm not saying that Kirby is covered in fur, but we can see how it's possible for him to be made of void, but still have the consistency of a regular, fleshy creature. Hollow said in an interview that if Kirby was ever cut open or anything, he would be made of dreams. And I believe you can see what this looks like by looking into his eyes, because you can see a large starry night sky in his eyes. What Kirby would feel like to the touch is still unknown. The next things I'm going to say aren't exactly related to Elfilis being void, but since we're already talking about Elfilis, I might as well say this here instead of making it a separate video. It was brought up in a comment that the Machine Passage monster might be more offshoots of Elfilis, that made me realize Elfilis achieves their true form with more than just Elfilin. He absorbs tons of other creatures, so it's possible more parts of Elfilis were separated and these creatures compensated, because if not, wouldn't he achieve more than his perfect form? And even with all this, he still melts back down after getting wounded, which would imply still some level of imperfectness. But unlike Elfilin, this wouldn't have been in an accident since it doesn't get brought up during the tour. Instead, it was probably a deliberate separation by the humans to monitor and experiment. And since we know that Elfilis is void, it is entirely possible for Elfilis to become pure pitch black like this. And the buildings in Machine Pass even look like the ones you can see in the tour hall. The only wrench in this theory is that Machine Passage has completely different language on the walls, which I guess there could be more different new languages in the Forgotten Land, but if this is the same group, it should be using the same language, even if it's very far away. Next we have the Doomers. It was mentioned in the second Sphere Doomer EX pause description that the Doomers' current forms aren't their original forms, and that they could warp space and time. Before. We know Elfilis has that ability, and the Green Doomer even looks quite similar to Elfilis, made of the same substance, same number of wing feathers. Originally, I thought the tail feathers deconfirmed this since Elfilis has a different tail, but if Elfilis is void, then his body could morph into pretty much anything. He already has a bit of bird-ish DNA, so it works. It even explains why the Doomers are so drawn to the spheres. The Lore Starcutter was most likely created using the warp technology stolen from Elfilis to escape from Earth. As it claims that they've lost this ability, they're trying to cling on to the one thing that still has it. Though despite saying this, the Greater Doomers still appear through portals in the Clash games. It could just be referring to the Sphere Doomers, who are likely weaker though. The Doomers are also native to another dimension, and Elfilis has some ties to it. Some have theorized that it comes from another dimension, but as it currently stands, this is still just a theory. So, now you know Elfilis is void, and there is an entire species known as nil life. What did you think of the other theories? Do you think the Doomers are Elfilis' relatives being deformed? Did I miss anything else significant? Let me know in the comments below.